Let's go beyond the connection. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. Today we have two super interesting guests on and a conversation that is going to really be amazing because it's a conversation that a lot of people aren't talking about, but really helps trigger success in all of our businesses, and especially in the telecom business. We have on today Julian Jacquez. And Julian, you are the president and COO of BCN. You've been in the telecom industry for almost 30 years. And during that time, you've done a lot of business building, you've done some acquisitions, a lot of decision-making along the way of what creates success. And our topic today is building high-performance teams, which fuels sustainable business success. So we're going to get into that subject in a big way here. And you're the proud father of 3 boys, as I understand it. Congratulations getting them launched off in life. That is probably your biggest accomplishment. And Jeanne Duca, and Jeanne, you have a son that you're very proud of. You're the chief marketing officer here at BCN. And when we were talking before, the conversation was so entangled between you and Julian that I said, hey, can you join us, please? You had so much to offer and such interesting points that I'm so glad you could join us here today.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here with both of you.
What I'd love to do is just give each of you a chance just to say a minute or so of things that expand on your background just a little bit more, and then we'll jump right in. So, yeah, Julian, maybe you could start us off.
Sure thing. Thanks for having us, Steve, too. We really appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts and views. Maybe there's something of value in what we share. We'll see at the end how it turns out. But again, I'm Julian Jacquez, President, COO at BCN, approaching 30 years in the telecom and technology space. When I started, it was more telecom. As we advance and where we're at now, it's more technology, but I've seen a lot along the way. Last 20 or so years, I've had the great opportunity of spending that time with the team here at BCN as in a leadership role and ownership role along the way. But we've really been having a real good cycle here the last 5 or 6 years as this kind of latest business cycle plays itself through. Prior to this, I was with a firm called PricewaterhouseCoopers. If you want to know something that not everyone knows about me, before being in telecom, I was a CPA and took care of financial auditing and financial statements for companies. And then along the way, I found the opportunity to jump out of that area and start what at the time I didn't realize, but start what amounts to almost 3 decades of time here in telecom and technology.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. And Jeanne, how about you?
Yes, thank you. So I've been with BCN for 9 years, but I've been in the technology world for 20 plus years, either working for tech companies or for a 10-year period, I consulted with tech companies on brand and brand development. But my time here at BCN has been amazing. Based on Julian explaining his background, now you know why I always check every Excel spreadsheet 10 times before I send it to him. And he still finds something that I forgot. It's a wonderful environment, and we're happy to be on this podcast with you, to be partnering with Bigleaf, and to be a part of this effort.
Well, fantastic. I'd love to just jump right in. And the conversation here is all about high performance teams. And if you think about it across all businesses, the way I think about this is there's a reason why venture capital companies, PE companies, they invest in the team first, the idea second. High performance teams make the difference. But you extended on that, both of you, to inside, yes, absolutely, but strategic partnerships. And those relationships are mission critical for the business. And so I'd love to maybe, Julian, start with you about the power of strategic partnership and how you see that playing a role in business growth.
Yeah, for sure. When you really look at what we look at as maybe the 3 really critical relationships that we must have to be successful at BCN, I always talk about the 3-legged stool. And I always talk about the 3 things that we're foundational to. That's our team, BCN. That's our market partners or selling partners or go-to-market partners and our customers. So I always think if we can account for those 3, we have a great opportunity to do some really neat and really great things. I've also thought in reverse of that, I don't believe you can have happy customers if you don't have happy employees. I think if you have disenfranchised sales partners or technology partners, I think it's going to be challenging to find good customers, and it's going to be challenging to have your team work with that other organization. So we've got to have all of those. They all have to be accounted for, and they all have to have their own value, and they all have to have the opportunity to enjoy the relationship inside of there. And I think maybe more specific to your point is just what I've learned is the enduring value of the relationships that we have with our selling partners and our go-to-market partners. Those relationships are just foundational to how we succeed and how we go to market. They are absolutely drivers of growth for us. They challenge us. They create us great opportunities, and they give us great rewards. That set of relationships and that leg of the stool is just extremely important to us. When I say the time tested, because they last over time, because a lot of times the individual in our industry will move around. Yeah. They'll change logos, they'll change brands, but the relationships they underpin all of that. And it's not uncommon at all for us to see a partner or have a great relationship that kind of moves its way through the technology spectrum and through the provider spectrum. So I can't say enough about it. So BCN, we go to market 100% through those relationships. We do not have a direct sales organization. I don't have a call center, robocalling business customers around the country. We do not have anything of that nature. That's what we've chosen as our best path to get our message out there and to find our success. And accordingly, those relationships, again, they're mission critical, and us accounting for them. Couldn't say it anymore.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think that when people say, well, how do you know that those relationships are bringing you value? How do you measure the return on the investment you make in those relationships? And I think it's easy to see, because when they refer more customers to you, when customers grow with you, when you find out that they've spoken about you and you're not in the room and they are advocates for you, that is a tremendous benefit to the relationship and the time we've put into that relationship. They're really telling people that they trust us, and trust is a really cool KPI. And it's not necessarily quantifiable, but it is a really strong measure of the strength of that relationship.
I'm so glad you brought up the idea of trust here. Not too many of us pour over, but we know of the Edelman LinkedIn Trust Barometer that they do. And in the last report that they put out last year, not only did they say that trust in the United States has been on a 4-decade decline, B2B trust, but what's so surprising is they had 32,000 respondents across the world, and 61% said that they were worried that business leaders were intentionally being misleading to them. That our brands are trust marks. These relationships, if you take trust away from these relationships, they fall apart. So I would love to ask either of you this question is how do we build trust? If it's that foundational to our business and our business success in these relationships, how do we build trust? What do we do to create that foundation and maintain it over time?
And I would say that in these relationships, and it sounds so simple, but sometimes simple's the right answer. But we always talk about doing what you say you're going to do. We talk about transparency. We talk about recognizing that sometimes a good deal was when both people probably gave a little more than they wanted to give. There's just some foundational things in there that allow someone to start to trust in you and to rely on you. And I think when you get to that point in these business relationships where they can truly, to Jeanne's point, trust in you and rely on you, you really can just grow again over time, whether you're wearing the same shirt or changing the shirts, the logos, it all comes back to that. These relationships are complex too, that we're facing today. There's layers in here in the channel that we're talking about. We have at the very top, we have what many refer to as the 5 TSDs, or technology service distributors. And then we also have what a lot of people refer to as TAs, or technology advisors. I believe there's actually a middle layer there. I call them technology service firms, which is maybe a little bigger than an individual TA, but definitely a little smaller than the distributors. We see a lot of success with those people. Those people have figured out that they need to team together for their success. So they create another layer in there. But I guess going back to the question is, you have to be able to service and support and maintain and build trust in all of those organizations, from the biggest ones in there, which are highly complex, a lot of moving parts in those relationships, to the smallest one who's maybe just meeting that person for coffee and finding out what's challenging them today and see if you can solve it for them or help them solve it.
Everything you said is so important and so right on. One of the things we say is, again, cliche, we put our money where our mouth is. We demonstrate what we say. We demonstrate our success. And I think that breeds trust. And I love the combination of trust and rely, because that's really what trust brings. If I trust you, I can rely on you. And it's a really, I think, a wonderful combination of terms and thoughts to guide us. And what we try to do, from our chairman and CEO, Richard Boudria, to Julian, to me, to other executives in the company, is we really try to live that every day and lead our teams in that way. And so the people that we work with, they see that no matter where they're entering the organization, no matter what door they come in, they get that same feeling. And that, I think, overall is what creates a brand, creates a company, creates a partner. And I think we do that, I say, perhaps biasly, I think we do that better than anyone in the market.
When you do that, you become a life ring in the ocean, because if 61% of these business leaders are worried about the kind of relationship and mistrust and distrust that there is, if you can establish, that's why, Julian, I think you said these relationships transcend. People move jobs and they're at one business and another, but the trust moves with them. The trust is lasting. And what we said at the beginning here was fueling sustainable business success. And what I'm taking away from what you're saying today is one of the foundations for sustainable business success is these relationships. And you, Julian, we talked before, you had a story. And the Harvard Business Review did a study, and they told us that we remember things 22 times better when it's told to us in the form of a story. And you have a story about the partnership with the sponsor of this podcast, and who is a partner of yours, Bigleaf. It was about a change in the regime, really, the executive management at Bigleaf before and after. And there was no change in the product and the technology, but there was significant change in the people. Tell me what that meant and what you learned from that story. Tell us what that was, really.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So our original relationship started with Bigleaf. And I think at the time, to use one of Jeannie's points, I think one of the KPIs that they were measuring success by was how many people they could bring to contract, how many partners like a BCN, how many service providers could they bring to contract. And they successfully brought us the contract. And then the relationship never got started, is the reality of it. We never leaned in. They never leaned in. And a little over a year later, we literally had an executed contract. We really didn't have any relationship traction. I don't think we'd done anything together if it was just a one-off. And it was probably just going to go separate ways, is the reality of it. But inside of that contract, there was some financial terms that obligated us to do a minimal level of business with them. So fast forward, we meet with the new team, which, interestingly enough, that meeting was put together because one of our good friends in the industry joined Bigleaf, and she said, "Hey, can we have a meeting?" And then we all went to the meeting, some new leadership at Bigleaf, and we went around the room like, oh, in all of these relationships, the table got warm. You could just feel it because everyone said, oh, wow, I didn't realize this was you. So then we took a pause, and people that know me know that I'm pretty transparent, very straightforward. And I'll ask you the question you probably maybe don't want to hear, or et cetera, but you get what you get. So I said right off, really at the start, I think this financial commitment's in the way of the relationship. We don't want to be a hostage to business. We're looking to be volunteers. We want to do this because it's meant to be done, not because we're being financially required to do it. The person who was there, again, great guy, new guy there, immediately said, 100% agree. Let's eliminate that and let's start again and let's build the relationship from there. I think the next day I had an amendment already canceling that financial. And some may look at it like that was, I don't know, you may look at it like, was that the right decision or wrong decision? Fast forward to today, it's absolutely the right decision. The relationships really got going. All of those embedded existing relationships, and Jeanne was at the meeting. I think there were about 3 or 4 people from other companies that we were all reconnecting with, and it just took off from there. So we didn't really need the contract to force us to do business. What we just needed to do was get the relationships going again and maybe get the right measurements to success going, as opposed to getting someone the signature. How about we focus on getting it to business? But yeah, that was a pretty good one. And it worked out really well, which is, again, a testament to the leadership and the thought process over at Bigleaf.
It sounds like they made a commitment, they made an investment, and they said, you're right, we don't need this, but we still want to invest. And we want to see this partnership grow. You were there, Jeanne. What any additional takes on what happened in that transition?
What I like about what Julian said is I think you said the table got warm. And that's a really nice way to say everybody went, okay. They sat back a little bit. They felt more comfortable. And again, it's the relationships, because once we got to that table, we had so much in common with so many of the people that were now part of their management organization. We came from this common ground. We've known each other for years. We know we're good people. We've done things before. We know we can make this work. And I think, again, it just brings back to life the importance of the relationship. And we talk about it all the time in the channel. It's such an interesting place to work. It's such a vibrant, wonderful environment. And we compete in some cases, but we're friendly competitors. It's a place where you really can just build on your relationships for year after year. Again, no matter where you are or what you're doing, you're always going to find that connection somewhere. And sometimes that's all you need to start. You just need to find that. We used to talk about, if you're going to be interviewed, find a common denominator with the person who's interviewing. And, oh, you went to Syracuse, I went to Syracuse. And okay, now we're off and running. That's what the relationships do for us in these business partnerships. They give us that common ground.
You're absolutely correct. So interesting. Last week, we have a role here that we're looking at filling in. It's a kind of a business development role for our TSDs and TA partners. We have folks that are interested in the role. And our CRO, Ryan Kelly, asked me, he said, will you do an interview with this lady? And let's see what you think of her. So we got into the interview, and what's just striking is, I said, how are you going to be successful with us? We want you to be successful. There's no reason for you to come here and not be successful. And she came out very quickly and got into a lot of depth about was the relationships she had, which would drive her success. It was her relationships with TAs, with TSDs, with firms and other partners, which wasn't about, I'm really great at this process. It wasn't about, I'm timely, I overpromise, underdeliver. It wasn't about all those things of never missing a meeting. It was all about these relationships. And it was quite clear that is how she was going to be, how she hopes to be successful with us. She described in this way we're describing in relationships that I think she's been in the business about 18 or 20 years. She was in a lot of different areas in the business. She has friendships and relationships that are in different areas, which you need. You got to have that whole, be well rounded out. It's literally like what we're talking about.
It's so refreshing. And I want you to give me a little bit of a balance if you can, because obviously in technology, the telecom industry, product, the technology, performance matters a lot. Nobody's saying here that the product doesn't matter, the technology doesn't matter. But there's one thing that gets truer and truer is that more and more, I think the average business today has over 20 competitors in the marketplace. The ability to create and maintain technology superiority and competitive advantage is nowhere what it used to be. When we all got into the business, product and price were king. But nowadays, there's a service component that is most often the third leg in the stool. And to accentuate that, McKinsey did a study in 2023, and they looked over 400 highly profitable businesses. And what they found, they had the largest profit return on shareholder value. And they found that the number one differentiator across all those companies was CX, was customer experience. And the people play such a huge role in that. Your story that you guys just told about working with Bigleaf was the difference in the business as I took away from it. How do you think about when you're creating your 5-year roadmap, your plan, customer experience? You talked about if we have engaged employees, high performance employees here, that's the number one step to recreating that experience outside. How do you balance technology and people in your mind when you're thinking about growing the business?
I would say, to answer the question, is the customer is going to give you your North Star. Okay. The customer is got to be where all of your eyes, attention, effort, and focus it has to be on the customer and on their experience with us. And I believe that the experience can be in multiple ways. Obviously, we have to leverage technology, leverage tools and technology to create and allow our team the ability to create a great experience. But you also have to have a great team that wants to create a great experience. I believe you got to have both. I believe that you need to have a great team. And then I believe you have to give them the tools and technology, the toolbox to go off and be successful with your customers. I don't think it's one or the other. I think they have to happen together. And again, be it whether you're saying the customer, the end user, or the relationship that we have in servicing our TSDs and TAs, either one of those, we've got to do that. The service provider space, you're stepping into a space there where people are going to rely on you. To our earlier conversation, they're going to trust you. They're going to trust that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. It's not necessarily easy. There will be some really great days where you feel completely rewarded and then there'll be days where you really were challenged and you may have got to the point of being frustrated and then you have to come back from it. But this is the space we choose to be in. If you don't want to be in this space, go become a spectator. You want to get on, we're on the field and our team is there. So I think that's critically important. I think, maybe we're going to talk about this a little later, but I believe in leadership inside of that team, big believer in lead by example, all of those things that allow you to have a great team. I always tease some folks. There's some folks in the company. I always say, we all work for you. That's the reality of it. I work for you. I have a sales director trying to get a deal closed. He needs a couple of things. And though we've got 2 or 3 people. And my point is the organization goes the other way. It's not a pyramid. It's like this. We all work for you. We're here so you can be successful. We're here to support you. We're here to create this outcome for you. We know if that individual's successful, we as a company are going to be successful, but it's an upside down org chart at times when you think about it. But I think that's the way it's supposed to be. That really is. You mentioned my 3 sons earlier. That's the thought process that I think many parents take with them is our goal here is to get them successfully out of their teenage years into their 20s, get them from their 20s to their 30s, no big landmines along the way, For me, that just transitions right to the workplace. It transitions me to the team.
I think you did. There's something that I've been reading a little bit about lately that you may have already heard, of course, is that in our business, when you talk about technology, one of the big concepts is the SLA, the service level
Yeah.
agreement. What are your SLAs? How is this service that you're providing me, this specially curated solution, how is it going to perform and what can I count on? And one of the things that people are beginning to talk more about is an XLA, right? An experience level agreement. And I think that's a really cool concept. And I won't say that we have a concerted, written down on paper XLA, but I think the way we operate and our focus on the experience and our understanding of what it takes to be successful and to have our customers feel that is really XLAs. So our XLAs are, we're going to do our best for you. We're going to be transparent. We're going to walk beside you every step of the way. You will not be alone in this process from the time you sign your contract all the way through implementation, through service assurance and beyond. As long as you stay with us, we are going to be delivering that experience level agreement to go along with SLAs that are the common feature of the technology.
I have to tell you, you gave me a little bit of chills there because I'm like, I'm going to write that down because I'm going to use that in my own business. Because that's just, when you think about it, it sums it all up. How are we creating an experience? That was that McKinsey thing. In fact, I just 2 months ago had a conversation with the chief customer officer. He had a conversation with one of his key customers, which was a CISO, chief information security officer. That gentleman had just gone through a business review as a part of his tech stack. And he said, we looked at 14 different companies. And he said, they all checked the box. Everybody said they could do everything. And he said, you're left thinking this is the sea of sameness. He said, here's the one thing I wanted to know. What's it going to be like to work with you after I sign that agreement? It's exactly what you're saying, Jeanne. That experience transcends. That experience creates relationships that transcend the individual business deal or business that you're in. So here's interesting. As a business, we think about value. We think about return on investment. How are we creating ROI for the clients, the end user of the services that we provide? How do we balance that in this conversation we've just had about the emphasis on service and experience? How do you measure that? How is that a part of this equation?
And I think that's a great question, Steve. What I would say is maybe just step back from it a little bit. And a lot of times trades are based on price, the buying and selling of services. Price is always going to be a factor. Whether you start there or end there, you're going to touch that base is what I believe, what I typically see. What I think we strive to stay away from is we don't want our solution to become commoditized. Commodities trade on price. So if you don't want to trade on price, then don't be a commodity. Picking up on some of the tones that Jeanne just shared with us, the goal is to shift the medium to experience and customer relationship and trust. And if you're going to have to deal with price, I'm not that naive, but if you can stay away from it being commodity driven price discussion, and really the true value of the trade is what's the experience going to be? How are you going to feel when you consume these services that I'm going to sell you? Are you going to get a stomach ache? Are you going to feel really good after your Thanksgiving meal? That's the way we want you to feel. We want you to feel like you just had a really nice meal and you really like where you're at. You like the house you're in. You like the feel of the room. You like the people around you. That's how we want you to feel. We don't want you to gone through the drive-through, picked it up at the window. Now my stomach's all upset. Geez, I got to go home. So that's really what I would say is changing it to where the value is the experience before, to Jeanne's point, after you sign the contract, through the onboarding, and now you're in your life cycle of the relationship.
I agree completely. And we've said it before, the pieces and the parts that from which we create the custom solutions that we create for partners based on our partners and their customers, based on their specific requirements. The pieces and the parts, a lot of people have those same pieces and parts. So how do you stand out? How are you unique? And it really is about what it feels like to do business with BCN. What is it going to feel like to be a customer? And that's where the trust, the advocacy, the ability for the people we work with and work through to be able to share the experiences they have already had or that their customers have already had with new potential customers. That's where that all comes into play, because you can't just say it, you have to demonstrate it. And I think we do that very well.
Can't be underscored more, because the market tends to lean towards price is where everybody wants to start. And it's our job to build in the value and deliver the value. So it's an interesting balance. But if we don't, I know that the one thing that's always going to be true is, I ask this question of a lot of people. If I took the relationship with BCN away and you could no longer work with BCN, how would that make you feel? I ask that question of a lot of my clients and their clientele. And here's what I get: speechless. That's what you want them to be. That's the meal, that's the house, that's the comfort level. I don't want to be without them, because today's technology leader, they don't want more work. They have fewer staff to get more done in an ever more complex world than it was before. So they want you to make it easy. They want to be able to rely on you. I'd love to ask you that same question, which is, we've talked a lot about a lot of different things, in Julian, and in our poor brains, we can only remember about 2 or 3 things at a time. What's the one thing that you would like the technology leaders that are watching this episode today to take away?
I guess I would say to you is, and maybe this is more from organizations that are going through rapid growth in a changing technology environment, be it whether you're on our side of the equation as a service provider, or maybe on the other side of the equation as someone who's buying these rapidly changing services that are happening all around you. I would say, again, maybe going back to where we started, there are 2 things that I have the fortune or misfortune of making a lot of decisions at times. And there's 2 things that I always think of at this point. I love doing business with people that I trust. It's simply easy.
Yeah.
It gets me comfort. I realize that we're probably going to encounter a challenge at some time, and I realize that I'll get through that challenge with a friend. So I would say that. The other thing I would say, and what I'm really learning as BCN is, as we're going through our stages of growth now, what I'm very much learning is you have to have the team. You have to get that team in the equation, and you cannot, there's exponential value that happens whenever you get the next person on the team, adds value, and then lifts the entire team. So that's what I would say. And again, maybe those are the biggest challenges that we face, but it's finding trading partners that you can trust and getting your team right and making sure your team, you're never going to get there I don't think you can get there at scale without those 2 things.
Jeanne, I'd love to get your take on the one most important thing that you want to leave the audience with today.
I think when you have had the experience that I have had in my career, and Julian, I know that you've had in your career, I can honestly say that the experience of being here with this team, with this opportunity, is unlike anything I've had before. It is such a tight operation with such a common set of goals that things just move the way they're supposed to. And again, sometimes you're going to have a rough day, but more often than not, everybody comes together, understands the issue, understands what it is we're trying to do, and starts moving in that direction. And that is just a blessing, I think, in general, to be able to work in that environment. And it's really something that we absolutely love to share with partners, with customers. We're just passionate about making sure that they feel every bit as good as we do when they work with us.
Well, here's one thing that I know is that people are going to have questions. Is it okay if I give out a link to each of your LinkedIn profiles that if people have questions, they could reach out to you?
Absolutely. That would be
For
great.
sure. Yep.
The mission of this podcast is to bring technology leaders together and to share from our experiences, our perspectives, our insights. And if we all do that and share with each other, we get good ideas from everywhere. And it's like the rising tide that lifts all boats. And I just want to say thank you because I think you guys both played a really important part of being that rising tide today. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Steve.